You are watching Xirtus.
Asuras and Suras and devils and divas. It is interesting.
Yeah, because like devas are like the good guys in the Vedic thing, right? And asuras, actually, the asuras, not to overplay it, that they're bad guys. They're, how do you say?
Power seeking or whatever.
They're definitely power seeking, like Slytherin, right? But like, they actually have a lot of good qualities. But it's like it's like the fatal flaw of the hero, right? Causes him to stumble and fall, right? So like they could be very generous or they could be very like meticulously righteous, like I don't want to say Nurse Ratchet. That would be too like psychopathic. I'm not saying they're psychopathic, although like they do usually have like a fatal flaw, like maybe lust or greed or the will to dominate everyone. Not even but the main thing in the Vedic thing is that they're not aligned with Vishnu. Like they're antagonistic to Vishnu, who's the god of the Veda, and who's non different than Shiva. So there's kind of like a Shiva Vishnu, um, unity going on. But what I was wondering is like, so I used to live in temples, right? And you'd get like a temple president, like who, um, like didn't deserve to be there. Like if you ever lived in ashram and you like see like the person leading, you're like, how does this guy? He's managing, and then you see like the normal people like practicing, and then sometimes like the ashram like manager is like actually like he's not doing meditation or whatever, and you're like, this person's not actually like practicing. They're just like they think that their service of managing is like the same thing as practicing.
Mm.
So what I was wondering is then, so like, because the asuras mostly follow Lord Shiva, that do you have like a temple president's problem where you have like people worshiping Shiva and Persia and in Persia and stuff like that. You have something like this going on, and then it splits off, and you get asuras following him, and then instead of worshiping the god, then they end up worshiping the temple president. Because like in an ashram, like sometimes people will feel the heat from the manager, to like get these sort of like material tasks done that are not meditation. So like everybody like tries to scramble to get something done, But I wonder if you have like a temple president's problem in Persia where people stop worshiping a god and they started worshiping the asuras. I don't
I
know.
think that's generally like what most of our civilization looks like, is that at a certain point people start worshiping the things like the administrators, which become, conflated with gods essentially, because they're like, well, these are very holy people that we can achieve becoming. And then eventually it's like, you can never become like these people. They're so good at practicing it. You'll never be able to practice that way. So just serve them, and then systems of control.
Or yeah, you can't actually achieve the results of the tradition. Better just to do humble service. So like humility is a worthy goal, right? And tolerance is a worthy goal, but so is the ability to defend others and to stand up for things. So, if like humility gets too powerful, then people just let themselves get walked all over, and then you end up with like this kind of sycophantic situation. And like instead of actually practicing, like you said, I'll just serve this greater person. Like people turn the guru into like a I don't know, like some kind of like God, yeah, in a sense. I mean, the guru is basically just like teaching you and an exemplar of meditation. So
I think that's like a big connection between, these traditions. So the saint worship, but also worshiping the guru or whatever. In Persia, this is a big thing too, probably, where super important people became cults, right? Like these people that were really good ascended masters. So ascended masters that are practicing Zoroastrianism are being conflated as deities, and then there's a conflation between groups of Middle Easterners and Hindus, right? Like the Northwest into the of India, and then like the Southeast of Persia. Like there's a lot of crossover there. So different groups are taking traditions and exchanging them, and they're treating them the way that like so if someone conquers a group and they try to instill a religion, that religion, the best they can do is get people there to worship that thing, but they're still doing it in the tradition that they're familiar with. They still keep their customs. So they end up worshiping, king as a god or a priest or something, right? The priest class, maybe, that were sent, like the mercenaries that were sent to capture this town.
Yeah, like I'm not invalidating like the claims of religion. I consider myself religious, but like I do have questions about like historical aspects, like when kings become gods, or like the priest becomes a god. Um, not saying it couldn't happen, but I'm more interested in like the linguistic aspect, like what's on the fringes of our history at like the earliest stages. Um, and then recently I started questioning, all of history. Like, how do we know if the news is this bad? Imagine how bad is history.
Well, so like in the Zoroastrianism, it's like flipped, right? Like the Devas and the Asuras are like flipped around, basically. So like you're supposed to be trying to take more power, right? And like so the Ahura is kind of interesting. Ahura sounds kind of like a Asura also, right?
Well,
So
that's not a faux etymology, at least from like the language scholars. Like they conclude that is a actual cognate, not a false cognate. So cognate is like when they sound the same and they are the same, but like there's like a false cognate, like I said, like Krishna and Christos. They're different roots. Now, like, with the caveat that somebody didn't like fudge the thing. I mean, there could be something, but just for now, going with like the standard.
yeah, but that's essentially what we're talking. You were saying earlier about warring tribes will switch each other's gods and demons, right? So for them to flip it the other direction, essentially taking the Persian belief and flipping it, saying these guys are actually their gods are demons, right? Like their devas or divas, like because I think that's the Avestan word is diva. It's like or diva, like AE. It's like DAEVA instead of DEVA.
Yeah, they're like the proverbial bad guy.
Yes.
But then my question remains though is what about that? Because that really throws a monkey wrench in it. That negative particle before surah. They're not surah. So is their name, if let's say you take the Zoroastrian thing and say that this is the original, and then
The Zoroastrians say the diva, the divas are the gods that are to be rejected.
right. So, but then my question is about the Asura or Ahura is what's up with that negative particle So your good guy is defined as not a bad guy. That just sounds like very strange to me. Like my God is not a bad guy. It's like,
well, like absent of evil, like purely absent of evil or something.
I'm not at all a Zoroastrian scholar, but just from like a language like not evil, it just seems like it would be more sense to just say he's good.
True.
Right?
But I mean, to be absent of evil, I guess it's to be defined by evil, so that's true. But
yeah, it seems to be entangled with like it could be, I mean, maybe the imminent is all. I don't know. Is Zoroastrian a transcendental outlook? Like, are they prizing the transcendental and putting down the imminent? The Hindu thing definitely prioritizes or gives a superlative evaluation of what is transcendental. So,
yeah.
but if you're defined as not bad and not a devil, or if you're not a surah, then it's weird. I don't know. I would like to learn more about it. Like I'm really ignorant. I hope somebody comes down here and schools the living F out of me about Zoroastrianism. But I do plan on taking a deeper dive on that.
Well, I think a big part of it, like in Manichaeism, is the 7 and 7 positive, like the dark and the light, positive and negative energies that make up the sort of the dynamic. It is materialism versus spiritualism that trap each other, and so light convinces darkness to swallow it. So darkness is one, it thinks, but then it has light inside of itself, and so light shines through the darkness, and eventually that destroys the darkness, which it requires integration, which is not the way that most of the different religions pushed it. They're like pushing you to the opposite. So I mean, there seems like there are some strong differences in Zoroastrianism from Hinduism, but on a level that's like Star Trek Romulans versus Vulcans, like the entire ideology is different based on whether you're serving or you're trying to become a super being, right?
There's also the way that the language and the culture will drive new interpretations and innovations within the tradition. So like sometimes then the origin is sort of like deracinated or like cut at the root, and you don't really know. Like this is what we have at the edges of history. We don't really know what's before that very well. although there are clues. Like I was saying also about Odin. He's lost an eye, right? And then but Shukracharya in the Vedas is the guru of the Asura, and he also is missing an eye. And then the Aesir gods, I don't know. It's uncanny. I can't, but it's definitely a starting point. I think it's a hype.
Yeah, like the Dajjit in the Quran is missing an eye. The Antichrist is missing an eye in the Quran.
Really?
Yeah. So this kind of interesting, this idea of the one-eyed Antichrist or the one-eyed God or the one-eyed prophet or
like the Cyclopeans, like the Titans. Like
right, fighting the Cyclops.
That's like a Titanology. We need to get like a Titanologist, like a Norse like neo-pagan, and like a Persian or Islamic scholar. We need to like get all these people together.